In this video, we're going to animate our character. We'll keyframe the wing, the leg, and the propeller. Before we begin to keyframe our animation, we want to check to make sure that the virtual keyframe button is clicked on. It appears to be a broken circle with a couple of arrowheads and a plus sign in the middle. That should be red. I'm going to start by setting my timeline between frame 1 and 30. We'll need a tool for our shelf to continue. Holding down Command-Shift, I'll go to Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. I'm selecting the wing. I'm going to center the pivot, hit W, and I'm going to delete by type history. I need to have my pivot at the sphere at the end of the wing. Holding down D on the keyboard, I'll move it to where I want it to pivot at that sphere. To confirm it's in the right spot, I'll start to use my orthographic views. In my top view, I'll hold down D again, and I want to get it in the middle of that little sphere that defines it as a ball joint from which it will rotate. I'll confirm that it's in the spot I want on my side view as well. And hit Command S to save. Going to my perspective view, I'm going to hit E on the keyboard. I'd like to rotate it on its x-axis so that it flaps. Going to the channel box with the wing selected, I'll first go to Modify, Freeze Transforms, and that will clear any sort of numbers you see here and return them to 0. In my front view, I'll start to set the keyframes for my animation. At frame 1, having hit E, I'll tip the wing up a little bit. In my channel box, for Z, I'll right-click and choose Key Selected. Now I want this to be a cycle so that it begins and ends in the same place. To accomplish that, I will shift and drag over the keyframe in the timeline below. You'll know that you've selected it when you see that the keyframe that was red is now yellow. I'll right-click and choose Copy, and go to the end of my timeline, and right-click and choose Paste, and paste. Now it will begin and end at the same point. Nothing will happen until we go to frame 15 now, and with the rotation tool, move the wing down below like this. If I were to drag through my timeline or play, I've completed one cycle of the wing. Now we need to do that on the other side. Staying in my front view, I'll select the other wing. I'll make sure that the pivot's where I want, and if it weren't, I would center the pivot, hold down D, and move it into position. I'll go to Modify, Freeze Transforms. And I'll tip this wing up at frame 1 in about the same angle as the one we just animated. Right-clicking on Rotate Z, I'll choose Key Selected. Once again, we want to cycle. I'll hold down Shift, drag through my timeline, and when I see that red area with the keyframe now yellow, I can right-click and choose Copy. Going to the end of the timeline, I'll right-click and choose Paste, Paste. At frame 15, I'll rotate it again, down about the same angle as the wing on the other side. And if I were to play that now, I've got one continual cycle that will loop. This will allow us to loop this animation for whatever duration we want when we make a composite in After Effects. Now we're going to animate the propeller on the back. I'll select the propeller, go back to the beginning of my timeline. I'm going to hit W, center the pivot, and delete by type history. Now I need to rotate this on its Z-axis, and I want it to be one cycle of 360. If any numbers appear over here in the channel box, simply go to Modify, Freeze Transform, and it'll zero everything out for you. At frame number 1, with my channel box available, I will be rotating this on my Z-axis. I'll right-click, choose Key Selected, leaving it at 0. Going to the end of my timeline, I'll click in the box with the 0 and put in 360 and hit Return. If I were to play my timeline now, my propeller is going around. Now we'll animate the legs. I'll select one of the legs, and I want to make sure that the pivot is at that ball joint where it attaches to the body. I would hold down D, and I'd put it into the position I need, using the front view and probably my side view, just to confirm it's where I would like it to be. In my side view, I'll start the animation. Putting my timeline back to frame 1, choosing Modify, Freeze Transform, hitting E on the keyboard to get my rotation tool. In this view, I can see the red circle is what I need to keyframe, and that's my x-axis. I'll start by moving the leg where I'd like it to be, kind of at an angle like this. And for Rotate X, in my channel box, I'll right-click and choose Key Selected. I want this to be a complete cycle again, just as we did with the wing. Shift and drag through your timeline, selecting your keyframe so that it's yellow. Right-click, choose Copy, go to the end of the timeline, right-click and choose Paste, Paste. Now all we need to do is go to frame 15, and I'm going to rotate it back in that direction. If I were to drag through a play, I have a complete cycle for that leg. I'll return to frame 1, staying in my side view. Now I'll animate the other leg. I want the legs to be going in opposite directions. So I'll select the other leg, which is pretty much vertical still. Modify, Freeze Transforms, and I'll rotate it back in the opposite direction of the leg we just keyframed. I'll right-click on Rotate X, Key Selected. I want that to be a cycle as well. Holding down the Shift key, select your keyframe at frame 1, making sure it's yellow. Right-click, choose Copy. Go to the end of your timeline, right-click, choose Paste, Paste. Now I'll go to frame 15, and at frame 15, I'll put that leg forward in the opposite direction of the other leg. If I were to return to my perspective view now, and play my timeline, I have everything animated that I want. In the next tutorial, we'll be animating the arm with the little cone at the end of it with a thing called IK Kinematic.